Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, episode 23. Here with me, as always, Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all the insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gophers hockey. Joe, survived another week of fatherhood. Glad that we've strung back-to-back here.
You keep adding them together, all of a sudden they'll be a full-grown adult, right? So baby steps. It's a long season, but yeah, no, it's been going well, and he's at the point now where he's sleeping through the night, where you don't have to worry about waking him up to feed him and stuff, which is a great thing. Like if they wake up or you wake him up at some point, but I'm not one to jinx anything. But so far, the little lad has enjoyed the night sleep, probably slept better than we have, so that's a good thing.
That's very
You guys are on the mend and feeling better now? You guys are all back?
Yeah. We survived. It was a not fun 10 days, but we got through it. And then finally just had last week his delayed 6-month check-in.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he currently is the size of the average 1-year-old. So
okay,
it might be an enforcer. Might not have hands, but he might be able to lay down the law. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious where ours will be, since he was like 95th percentile for size all the way through.
Yeah.
It's I just kind of bummed I missed kind of the scrunchy little newborn stage where they're just kind of like right up in your chest, and you can that little look there. But because he's like long, he's like Tayshaun Prince long, like crazy. So it's just like you can't just, you have to let the legs hang out so you can do this. So
Yeah.
but that's when we're building up our upper body strength here.
Hey, I know your burden. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We got maybe one or two quote unquote news updates. Outside of that, there's definitely been some debate, discussion flying around online with what we expect for the Wild this year. We'll dive into a couple of those topics, as well as interview we've pre-recorded for you guys. Liam Öhgren, what a stud. Excited to give you guys this one. And of course, as always, got to wrap it up with a quick little hot take segment from our good friends at Barrel Theory. But Joe, it happened. Everyone talked about it, spoke it into existence for the past month and a half, it seems, even before he was an official candidate. Dean Evason has been hired to be the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
He has, and I'm happy for Dean. There's always you wonder if the guys will get a second shot or a second job after being a head coach, and so I'm happy that he got that opportunity. I think sitting down with him, and like Mike Russo and I did after he was let go in Minnesota, he was pretty reflective and learned a lot just about that first experience with Minnesota and things you could have maybe done differently. So it's always good to have that second chance to kind of what you build off from the one. And he fits what they want to do. Columbus to me always had like the Hitchcock and then the Tortorella mode, and he's a really demanding guy. Sneaky sense of humor if you know him or get to know him better. And I think maybe this time around he'll be more open to kind of let people in a little bit about himself, his personality, whether that be with media or not. But obviously a hard worker, a guy had a really great background coming up the coaching ranks. So you'll see him twice in the first 5 games, right? First part of the season, the season opener, the Dean revenge game. So
are you and Russo already writing that story?
I mean, we got a few months for it. I'm looking forward to the tribute video for that one. That'll be pretty cool.
Tell me that it's just going to be a highlight reel of him beating the wheels off Darby and then finally just a stare down with Rick Bowness. That's all I need.
Yeah, it's just like there'll be plenty of those. But
that was
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're not surprised about this, but there were a couple other names in that conversation. I think McClellan, they had contract talks with.
What happened? Can you explain? Do you have any idea what fell apart? It sounded like McClellan officially got offered the job, and they told him what the contract offer was, and he's like, "Yeah, never mind."
Well, I think there were just different reports on that. I think anytime you're still being paid by one team and then you negotiate contract with the other team, who pays what and how does it add up? And a lot of times the biggest issues are with assistant coach payment or staff, how much, I think that's what's a big sticking point. Rod Brindamore's negotiations with the Hurricanes, this past year. He wanted his guys to get taken care of, and he wanted more stability for them. So I think sometimes it's not just the black and white like payment for the coach. It's like, the support around him, the staff, all that. And I know there was some talk about his idea of how far away Columbus is from competing versus what management thought, So, but I think you have McClellan, you have Jay Woodcroft was another person I think who brought in similar to Dean Evason for multiple conversations. Obviously, two different kinds of coaches and backgrounds, but it seems as though they wanted a guy with experience. They wanted somebody who's been there in that role before. Got a lot of young players on that team, especially if they trade Laine. They'll have a lot of kids that they'll be growing through their system. A lot of Wolverines, which is interesting. I pitched a story about trying to watch Michigan Ohio State game with those guys, but yeah, I think it'll be a fun transition for him, and I guess just they lined it up perfectly to have a schedule where first games at the X to start it all off.
That's going to be electric. I love it. And it does seem like a great fit for both sides too. Like if there's one thing, anyone that wants to say good or bad about Dean, as far as X's and O's on the ice, he absolutely was a phenomenal fit for the players, for the locker room, for empowering the culture. And it seems like that's a lot of what Columbus needs right now.
It is. And he got them to play hard and get grit first. And people joke about that. But that was kind of his whole career as starting as a player when he was in Kamloops. I did that story where I went to Kamloops and talked to all his teammates and saw the video from his old days. I think that he is who he is, and he's not going to be shy away from that. And I think that'll be really good, instilling that discipline and culture. So I think they were missing that in Columbus. I think there was maybe the inmates running the asylum there a little bit too much. And they had 3 coaches in 3 years, right? So it's probably hard for them. Gene Larson and the whole Babcock disaster, and then you bring in a guy, Pascal Vincent, who's a really good coach, but this was the backup 2 times in a row, and then they gave him the job, and so he was in a kind of a tough spot from the get-go. So I think that would be, bringing in a Dean Evason would be, I think, good fit for them. And obviously he got fired in Minnesota, and they had that emotional conversation with Guerin at that point. I don't think it was completely on Dean Evason, the first season, part of the season slide. It's just easier to change a coach than it is to trade a bunch of players, especially with no trade clauses and stuff. Like they had to do something, and I think Bill Guerin read them the riot act in a meeting before the Sweden trip, and did everything they possibly could to exhaust their options. But I think Dean Evason kind of fell victim to what happened to a lot of coaches. If your goaltending struggles, all of a sudden you're not as good of a coach anymore, and their top players, Kirill Kaprizov and Boldy had slow starts. Once, John Hynes came in and Boldy took off, and once Kaprizov shook off his usual early season, maybe slow starts for him, for his standard, once they took off, all of a sudden you had a much better team. That's just the way the Wild are built. So I give Dean Evason credit for what he did in the time he was, and I think he learned a lot from maybe some of the mistakes that he made. And we'll go forward here. Maybe that'll be a good way. He doesn't have high expectations going this year. He doesn't have a big playoff contender hope, so he can work on it slowly and build from the ground up. So he won't face that whole got to win the first round series pressure that he did here, no doubt.
Yeah, going to be a lot looser from expectations, but also you mentioned too, maybe he'll loosen up more and engage with the media. Going from Minnesota to Columbus is going to be reverse culture shock. He's gonna be like, oh, whoa, this is pretty tame. This is okay. Yeah. I can work with this. This is nice.
Yeah, no, it is. And I know people knock the Columbus as a city, and I went to school in Michigan, so people always give people Columbus crap, but it's a fun little town. It's a fun town, and when the team is really good, the fans show up. And
oh yeah,
I never get used to the cannon. The cannon always scares the crap out of me, no matter if you know it's coming or not. But yeah, it'll be good, and looking forward to kind of seeing how the fans and the market kind of responds to him, and see if he can do even better the second time around.
Yep. And now the immediate question that every fan is asking, from your lens, Joe, how do you handicap the odds of Freddy Gaudreau actually being traded to Columbus? I don't care if you want to give me a Vegas line, if you want to rank, scale of 1 to 10, like realistically, is this happening?
So you're saying I should pre-write this story right now to have it all ready to locked up? Like
I might as well.
We've been able to forecast a few things and pre-write a few things. I think we'll be able to pre-write the Brock Faber extension thing at some point. But I think it's probably higher than most other places, with the connection to Evason, the need for professionalism and in that organization, and a veteran who can play all over the lineup. And so if you have an advocate like that with Evason, I'm sure that's somebody that he probably talked about in meetings, and we'll talk about as they look at the makeup of their team. So not to say that the Wild want to just dump Freddy Gaudreau, but I think if they find a fit there, and that's somebody that truly understands and values Freddy Gaudreau for what he can be as a player, maybe that's something that can give him confidence going forward. But I think for right now, they're just hoping after summer kind of to mentally reset and get some of his groove back, that Freddy Gaudreau is back to the guy he was a year and a half ago, and they signed him to a 5-year extension in the spring, right? So doesn't have a huge cap hit, just a long-term thing. So, they're betting on a lot of these guys from down years to step up, from Johansson to Gaudreau to Ryan Hartman. We'll talk about him later. But I think if you are looking at different fits for players, that would be one. Just like I thought Utah, was a fit for Marco Rossi because of Andre Tourigny, the coach, a big fan of Marco's, a guy who believes in him. Those are places that I would look first if I were thinking of moving players like that, or finding fits with the coaching staffs or people that kind of were on their radar before, because that's a good chance to A, find a good fit, B, find a trading partner who would give up good value for that player because they know where they are at their height versus what they were at their low.
Yeah. Season opener against the Blue Jackets. Freddie either on the Wild bench, on the Columbus bench, in the press box. What's the most likely outcome?
Wild lineup.
Okay.
I think it'll be wild lineup. We still don't know what'll happen with the Line situation. I know the Wild have been interested in him. He's still in the player assistance program. The Columbus would have to eat money no matter where he goes, but I think the Wild have like $1 million of cap space left. So, they would, even if they ate half, they have to move another player, whether that's Freddie or somebody else. And those deals don't have to happen before opening night. Those deals can happen during the season too.
Yeah.
But I think my guess is that he'll be the lineup. He'll be in that game for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have to go anywhere. He's going to be ready. Join us in the Brainerd Lakes area this Labor Day weekend for the CRMC Championship presented by Gertens at Cragen's Legacy Courses. Last year's PGA Tour America's Tournament of the Year kicks off Thursday, August 30th, with free admission for everyone. VIP tickets are available and could go fast, so do not wait to claim access to 3 hospitality areas that have your food and beverage needs covered. Last year, Faber, Shaw, Addison, and Walker were out in full force supporting their teammate and one of your favorite Minnesota Wild players in Matt Boldy. Who knows which Wild players you might run into this year, not to mention 2-time Stanley Cup champion Sean Chambers getting in on the action. Don't miss the Saturday Night Jam on the 18th green featuring The Hype. This is your chance to watch the next PGA Tour superstar right here in Brainerd, Minnesota. For more information, visit crmcchampionship.com. All right, so staying on that path, opening game, what do you expect the first line to be? Not what would you do, what do you predict with the Magic Orb?
I think it'll be Ek, Kaprizov, Boldy.
Okay.
I think they're going to start camp with Hartman, Zuccarello, and Kaprizov. I think they're going to give that, assuming Hartman had a good summer as they wanted him to have. And I think they want moving him up there and getting better secondary scoring. They know he has track record of playing with those guys, and they know Zuccarello had struggles without Kaprizov 5-on-5. So I think they might go back to that. to maybe deepen their lineup a little bit more than a one-line team. So I think they'll get some preseason and stuff will tell you some more about what opening night will be like. So I think they'll try to do that for Kaprizov, Hartman, and Zuccarello. Maybe that sticks. But I think, John Hynes found a formula with that line there with, Kaprizov, Ek, and Boldy. That was one of the best lines in the National Hockey League when they were together. So, and assuming they can get some more depth scoring from those guys, whether it's Johansson has a better year or Liam Öhgren, who we'll talk to on this podcast, steps up and shows he can play in that number 2 slot. Marco Rossi. So I think overall, my guess would be Hartman, Kaprizov, Zuccarello to start camp, and then potentially if that doesn't shake, then the Kaprizov, Boldy work their magic again on opening night.
Okay, and obviously you can't talk about the first in isolation because, like you just mentioned, the depth scoring is really the reason that you'd consider breaking up what was such a great line. You personally, obviously, we're not in training camp, we're not working with these guys, but on paper, what would you want the top 6 to be? What should the first 2 lines look like in Joe Smith's world?
That's a good question. I think I do like the Ek, Kaprizov, Boldy together. I like Rossi in a number 2 center role. With you need to find a finisher there with if you're going to put Zuccarello in line 2. So I would say if Ohgren turns into that guy, that's a spot. Third line, I like the idea of Foligno, Hartman, Trennan, which would be a really pain in the ass to play against line. But that also makes it like if Johansson's number 2 line, or you have him on the 4th line with Freddy Gaudreau, and so like it's a hard mix to balance because I don't like Rossi in the 3C role.
Yeah.
But if you move Hartman up, that's exactly where he'll be.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of ifs here, but if you can get more from Zuccarello without Kaprizov being there, then you can have that dream line of Kaprizov, Boldy. But I think what might end up happening is having the Hartman, Zuccarello, and Kaprizov that you'd have Ek and Boldy and whether it's Johansson or Ohgren or whoever else.
Yeah.
That would mean Rossi would be on line 3 with Foligno, and so like it really puts, for me, it's like I'd rather have Rossi in a number 2 center role.
Yeah.
But it takes, and if you're comfortable with Hartman as a number 3, which I think that'd be a really good line. So Hartman's kind of the key to this whole thing, in my opinion, just based on where he comes in after camp, what he shows, where he can be. Because if he has that good summer, he can all of a sudden be in that top line. They can move things around. But I really prefer Rossi in a number 2C role.
Do you think
what's your dream lineup?
Well, answer me this, because that'll be very telling of where my head's at. Do you think that Marco Rossi can be the 1C? Is he ready for that?
I think he showed it at spurts last year. So I think he's kind of a player that can grow into that for sure. I don't know if he's full time there the whole 82 games.
Sure.
But I think you can, like he showed last year, that he can play with those top players. And if I know Marco Rossi, he's going to work his ass off this summer and be even better into this year. So, if you're saying you want to have Rossi with Zuccarello and Kaprizov, is that what you mean?
That is what I'm saying, yeah. And then for me, the second line, and this is assuming things go the right way in camp, but I am very big on, and Spoke Z has talked about this one, I think since he was drafted. He's like, can you imagine what it's going to be like when we have Ek, Boldy, and Ohgren on a line together? Yeah. That's going to be fun. It fits, it balances. And again, for me, I love the Ek, Boldy, Kaprizov line. Obviously, there's got to be depth scoring. And if we can find that, and if we get some of the youth injected in, like whether it's Ohgren or Height, maybe that completely changes everything and you can keep that first line intact. But I'm just terrified to have one team or one line that drives everything and then let everyone isolate in on that.
Yeah, and that's what happened last year. But other guys have better seasons, and that not quite as much of a thing. But I do like Öhgren in the 2 second line role. I like him with Ek and Boldy. And then that third line is a pain in the ass to play against Foligno, Hartman, Trennan. Like, you have a team that's going to be really get that to that identity that they really want this past off season, right?
Yeah.
That would also mean that like Freddy and Johansson would be the fourth line.
Yeah.
Which would be like another. It'd be like a line 2B or like like whatever.
I think Freddy makes sense there. Johansson, I don't know, but to your point right there, are the third and fourth line going to essentially be 3A and 3B, or how do you see it being deployed?
Yeah, like it's almost like if Foligno, Hartman, Trennan have the mentality of a fourth line, but they have 3 line upside, so they're almost like you have 2. Your fourth line is almost like it's almost like 3A and 3B, right? And so you don't have. I think sometimes last year they had 2 fourth lines. I think last year they had 2 lines that were AHL players, right? Or some AHL players. So I think to have 2 like third line type things is definitely better, as long as that makeup of that third line is not just like a scoring line. It's like, I think Foligno, Hartman, and Trennan would be completely like a wrecking ball in some teams, and just
psychotic, and I'd love it.
So like, I think that's something you can start off against other teams' lines and really get the forecheck and like the mojo going. So yeah, like I don't think Freddy and Johansson are like a typical like, you think about Kustendinov, where does he fit in here too?
Totally.
So you're like, okay, is Kustendinov, Freddy and Johansson together as kind of like,
sure.
So it's the makeup of the team, and the whole idea is building that identity back. And if they feel like those guys can do it, that'll work. And like Lowacko, I don't know where he'll fit in. So extra forward, or maybe he's a fourth line guy, or where Kustendinov ends up. But I think Öhgren being on the team, which I fully expect him to be, gives them options. I think if he can elevate his game like he did at the end of the year, he could potentially be in that number 2 spot.
For sure. And based on dev camp, based on how we project some things shaking out, where lines might fall, which kids actually have a shot at cracking the NHL squad? And we'll assume like we're not decimated by injuries, right? Like, which guys do you see having that chance this year?
Well, I think Öhgren for sure. I mean, Kustendinov improved, so a big transition from coming from overseas and learning. And I know Kaprizov was good in terms of being his role model and taking him around, but I think Kustendinov will be better this fall. He'll have to earn his spot, of course, not just be given it to him. But I think he's a guy who could stick. Riley Heidt, kind of a wild card. I know they wanted to give him a chance, and I think he'll have every chance to improve in camp that he can do it. There's just not a lot of spots left on the current roster, unless you move like a Gaudreau, or unless you move somebody like that, because they're you don't want to play him on a fourth line either,
No.
So
I do think him or Öhgren could, like, say it's with like Foligno and Hartman, like that could work for a third line.
Yeah, I think if you flip flop that, you could have Öhgren in the third line with those 2 guys. If your second line would be the Johansson or whatever you want to call it, and then the fourth would be Freddy Kustendinov. But like, I think
go ahead.
But I think those are the guys. Like, I don't think Hunter Hate's going to be there. Like, I don't think some other guys. I don't think Sammy Walker's going to be there. Like, I think it'll be the guys that they had looking in last year with Öhgren and Kustendinov. He'll get every opportunity, whether he goes as a junior or not. But I think it would require some little roster shakeup for that to be the case, because you don't want to just have him play 8 minutes when he could be playing 25 in every situation. And because Riley Heidt can penalty kill. He can play good defensively. He's not just a one-trick pony as a scorer. So that's what makes him so interesting and he loves to play the middle. He loves to play the center position. So he was one of those guys where if they did trade a Marco Rossi, like, he's the guy who can fill in some center depth and be a 2-way guy. But a lot of these, if we're basing on what the roster is right now, I think that it'd be Öhgren, Kustendinov, and Riley Heidt would get that chance, but it would require some a wrinkle to the roster.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a realistic world where both Öhgren and Height make it, or is it almost like those two are fighting for the same middle six spot?
It feels like there, but I don't see Ohgren. I mean, unless Ohgren really drops off, I don't see him going back to play in Iowa. You know, like I think he's played pro, he's played with men, he's shown at the NHL level he can do it. He doesn't, and um, he has the option to go to the AHL, of course, but unlike Height, but you know, I guess Konstantinov would like. I think probably Height will end up being a better player than Konstantinov, more explosive player. I don't know if they would have Height there and then sit Konstantinov. I don't know if that's something they would do.
Konstantinov also profiles way better as that, like he can play the fourth line center and it makes sense, or as you're wasting Riley Height's time putting him there.
Yeah. I think Height is. I think the idea of having Öhgren, Height, and Urov on the roster next year. That sounds so. I think it's exciting for Wild fans.
Oh.
So I think you look at the young players they'll have: Öhgren, Height, Rossi, assuming he's still here, Urov. You know, I think that's something that you can. Bat Boldy is still feels like he's 21 still. You know, he's a really young kid. So a lot of young pieces there. And you'll add Brock Faber and Zeev Byam in the back end. So you have some pieces with Wallstedt. And, you know, we haven't talked about the goalie situation yet, but so I think, you know, the key is how do you transition these guys from prospects to players on your lineup, and you want to do it in the right way to make sure that Riley Height gets the most out of this year in his development. Where's the best place for him to develop, and if he proves he's better, he's one of the top 9 forwards on this team. Like it'll be hard for them to send him back. They'll have to find a way, because I think in Tampa they're like, if you want to take a spot, you earn it, and that means the veteran players above you, and you want a spot, you have to take it. And you know, like Steve Yzerman always used to tell us, like the players make the decision for us. You know, Braden Point made the decision for them to make him the first guy to make the team, as you know, his first year eligible to make the team, because he just was better than everybody else or better performing in camp. So I think that'll be the competition will be really good. I think for everybody, I think it'll be good for the Johanssons of the world to see these young guys coming in hungry and fighting for spots, because they want to prove that they're ready.
Yeah. And trigger warning on this last one for listeners. You're probably not going to be overly thrilled by the likely answer, but as we talk about Murat Khusnutdinov, this is a guy that fans have been very excited about for a while. He's made it here. People were happy with his play. Where is he going to be for the majority of this year? Do you say AHL, fourth line, third line, or the, I think, most coveted answer, playing with Kirill?
I think you're most likely to more of a fourth line role, the way that this team is constructed. And if people end up having their better years, then, you know, Freddy Gaudreau is more of a 20 goal scorer than what he was last year. Then all of a sudden he might get moved up the lineup around. So I think Khusnutdinov profiles as a guy who can play the PK, who can play a strong defensive hockey, forechecking like an animal. He can win draws, which is something really important. So yeah, I'm curious, and maybe there's certain guys on this team that with the kind of the penalty kill overhaul, with the penalty kill tweaks, will get more elevated roles in that particular special teams, and where their role 5-on-5 isn't quite as high as with their role in special teams.
That's fair. Well, I'll let you tee it up then here, Joe. We've already talked about him a little bit. I don't know if there's anything more you want to add on, again, a guy that I think we're both eagerly awaiting to see whether he's part of the opening night lineup for the Wild. Talk Liam Öhgren quick before we toss it over to the interview.
Yeah, Liam Öhgren's a guy, a top prospect. I had to meet up with him in Sweden actually in last November during the Global Series, and he had injury earlier in the year, but he really came on strong, and he didn't expect to be called up last year, but he was so good and went to Iowa and then came to the NHL. And I think he really turned some heads on the team and in the organization to where he showed he could play in the NHL. His size and his his skating ability and his shot, all of them profile as NHL caliber. And so, getting that look late last year, and we'll talk to him in this interview about what he learned from that and what the difference between playing in the Swedish professional league and the NHL is, and where he needs to go with his game and his background, obviously, and growing up, and his dad being a trainer for some top players, how that kind of helped mold him. But I think he's a guy when people are really watching in training camp, because his role could very well be a big one if he ends up kind of developing the way that people think he can.
Beautiful. Let's kick it over to him. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Joining the show today is one of us by way of the 19th overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft. Now playing for both your Minnesota and Iowa Wild. And I think he'll tell you that the goal this year is maybe to stick with just one of those. We have Liam, and you're going to tell me because I've heard it pronounced both ways. Is it Öhgren or Öhgren?
Öhgren.
Öhgren. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. First question that we have to ask, because I know we kept on kicking this interview down the road today. You guys were learning a bit about nutrition. Seems like there was a lot to cover there. Like, are you ready to just like divulge on us all of the secrets of nutrition and how we can convert our dad bods?
Oh yeah, I can tell you everything. But it was long, but it was good. We got to know about sleep and hydration and what's good to put in your body. So it was good.
All right, we'll get the secrets later then. We typically lead with just from outsider perspective, especially playing overseas. The first time you ever saw the Minnesota Wild logo, what did you think it was?
Man, I don't know. I definitely can't remember first time I saw the Wild logo, but it became reality at the draft. When I got drafted by the Wild, I didn't have that many meetings with them, so I didn't have a huge feeling that I was going to be drafted by them. But I'm so happy that I'm here, and I couldn't be more happy. It's been very good 2 years since the draft, and it's I hope I'll stay here for a long time, and because I really like it.
Well, as you see, the name of our podcast is Fellowship of the Rink, which is kind of based off of Lord of the Rings, and we're big Lord of the Rings fans. I wasn't sure if you have kind of a fandom or nerddom that you like go to, like something that a book series or movies or a show that you like to watch, or do you collect anything? Like, what's kind of your go-to off the ice thing that's kind of your, kind of oddball thing that you follow?
Yeah, I watch a lot of series, play a lot of video games. I really like the Harry Potter movies, and I'm watching Prison Break with my girlfriend. It's for me my fourth time watching it, so I really love that show. And, I'm a huge. I wouldn't say I'm a gamer, but I love to play video games. I play a lot with my younger brother, and play a lot of NHL and some other games too. But I'd say I'm a pretty good NHL player.
a lot of gamers on the Wild too. I'm sure you hear from Gustafson and those guys. They have a pretty good group of people who play. Have you gotten into that yet? When you joined the Wild, did you get a chance to play the video games with them?
Not really, but I'm staying with Mikey Milne for the past month here in Minnesota, and we played a bunch of games. Me, him, and Kid in Bank here as well, and I'm undefeated so far. So I'll leave it at that.
Do you play with the Wild, or what team do you play with in NHL? What team do you play?
We just randomized team, and then take whatever you got.
Well, as development camp now, as we're speaking, you are one of the few NHLers at development camp, a guy who's played in the league now. Got your first taste late last season. What was your biggest takeaway from your experience? What's the biggest thing you learned about how you could handle the level? What was the changes for you and how you felt about it?
I mean, it felt pretty good actually. I didn't know at all what to expect. I know it was gonna be a hard league to play in and all that. So I was nervous before the first game, especially. But I was actually most nervous about the rookie lap than the actual game. When that rookie lap was done, I felt like, okay, now I can relax a little bit and just focus on the game. But yeah, it was great to get that for 4 games, get to know how it feels, and to know that I'm capable of playing on that level. I think I'm ready for it, and I think that's huge for me coming up to this next training camp.
Your first solo lap was in a different atmosphere too, in Vegas. You had showgirls dancing in the stands. There's a different vibe there. What was the most surreal moment you had in your NHL debut? I know your family was there too. Just holy crap, this is different.
Yeah, just getting out there without the helmet was pretty unreal, and to see my family in the stands was really cool. And I throw a puck to my brother during warm-ups as well, and yeah, that was a special moment for sure. So yeah, some really cool moments. The first ice time I got as well. Just something you dream of when you're a little kid, and to finally have that accomplished, it's really cool.
Well, take us through your first goal in San Jose, and where is the puck now? Is it in some sort of casing somewhere? Your dad have it at home, or where is your milestone puck at?
I just got it when I got here. Actually, they framed it, so now I have it in my apartment here in Minneapolis.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
We mentioned your dad has been a big influence on your life, and obviously a trainer for some NHL players, Landeskog and Raquel and everything else. What's your earliest memory and influence you had with some of these guys? It's I saw a picture of you doing in Crocs some sort of drills with players. What's your earliest memory, and what kind of influence did that have on you when you're coming up?
Yeah, it meant a lot for me. From I don't even know what age I was, but from a very young age, I got to meet those players, and I looked up to them my whole life, and got to train with them and see how they act off the ice or off the training, how humble they are, and how hard they work as well. That's meant a lot for me, and I'm really happy that I've had that opportunity for sure.
There was a picture of you and Marcus Johansson and Backstrom, and you looked like you were 7 years old. When you came to the Wild and obviously had the same team with them, did you ever talk about that, or I'm sure the picture came up in conversation at some point of I don't know if you remember you at all, or how did that?
Yeah, I showed them some pictures. I celebrated Christmas with Backstrom and Marcus, and I don't know what age I was, but probably around 12 or something. So yeah, it's a special moment. I've looked up to them Marcus pretty much my whole life, and to finally be in the same team, it's pretty unreal.
Do you feel bad at all that Marcus probably just feels like the oldest person ever now that you're here?
Yeah, he told me he feels really old now, but yeah, maybe I feel a little bit bad, but he's a very great guy, and I'm really happy that he's here and taking care of me.
You mentioned your brother and flipping the puck to him in warm-ups. Just take us through what those early years were like with you guys competing with each other, and you had a kind of makeshift rink out back. But just like, how much did he challenge you? Did he ever beat you in anything in your life? Did he ever beat you in Monopoly? Anything else? Did he ever beat you in anything growing up?
Yeah, he for sure beat me in something. I think he's. I don't know if I'm gonna give this to him, but he's maybe a little bit better at video games. That I don't want to say it, but he probably is. But yeah, it's been so good to have him beside me my whole life, and we've competed with almost everything. I remember one time my grandma was gonna like cut her hair, and we did a rock paper scissors of who was going first, and I lost, and I just slammed my stick and broke it in half. Was so mad just because he got the first. So yeah, we've been competing all life, but I think that had helped both of us to get where we are today at a hockey level and personality as well.
How would you compare your guys' games, your scouting report? Like, how much of a different player is he than maybe you are?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more powerful forward, two-way, have a good shot, and maybe he's a little bit smaller. He's not so early in growth, so it will probably come later. But he's pretty small right now, or he's actually growing right now, and he's starting to get bigger. But he's smaller. I think maybe he's a little bit smarter than me on the ice. He sees the game so good, and he's a very good playmaker. So he's a pass first mentality, and I'm a shoot first mentality.
That's a good combo then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You talked to you in Sweden. You mentioned from afar you appreciated Kaprizov's game, and now getting a chance, obviously, to practice and play with him, be around him in games. Like, are there certain things you took from him, other guys on the team, just being around him day to day that stood out to you, of like just being around at the NHL level?
Yeah, for sure. They just how like focused they are every practice, and I want to get better all the time. And obviously, Kirill is so good player, and you just watch him skate and see how smooth he moves and how good he is with his hands and all that, and try to see what he does that makes him so good, and try to take that with me. And yeah, it's very cool to be training with him and playing games with him, and all the other guys as well. They're you can really feel that it's another level.
Did you have a welcome to NHL moment? You have a welcome to NHL moment in a game where you're competing against somebody you looked up to growing up and stuff that kind of stood out to you? Like your first time in an NHL game, you're like, wow, this is just, I can't believe I'm here doing this, or this person's I'm playing against. Was there a certain welcome to NHL moment you had?
Maybe the rookie lap.
Yeah.
You've always see the rookie lap on social media, and when you play your first game, you're gonna do a rookie lap. So probably when I skated out with no helmet, that was probably the welcome to the NHL.
When you look at there was some questions from fans we wanted to get to here. Who's a player you modeled your game after?
I think that's a tough question. I've said Gabriel Landeskog before, but I think he's a little bit more physical than I am, though. But I love to watch Austin Matthews, and I want to say I'm a little bit mix of Gabriel Landeskog and Austin Matthews, maybe with Matthews' shot and goal mentality, and because he scores from all angles, and I feel like I can score with a shot or with a tip or whatever it is. And also with Landeskog, he's just compete level and how much he competes in every battle and all that stuff. So yeah, maybe a little mix of those. I try to be.
I think the Wild would love to have that combination of Landeskog and Matthews. Who's your favorite Swedish player of all time?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I want to say Landeskog, Backstrom, because I know those guys, but I don't know. I really love to watch highlights of Peter Forsberg. I think he was so good, with the puck and without the puck, but for sure with the puck, how strong he was on it and how sick goals he scored. And yeah, I think he's one of the best Swedes that ever played.
Is there a most influential person or coach you've had in your kind of rise? I guess aside from your dad, who's obviously been a trainer for a lot of things, but like, has there been a coach or like an influence on you in your career that's really stood out?
Yeah, I had a coach in my youth team from I was like 4 years old up to, I don't know, 14 maybe. So I had him 10 years, and he helped me a lot. His name is Claes Westerlund. Yeah, and I'm really happy that he took care of me that much, and yeah, everything he did for me and our team. We had a great group. So he's probably the most, or the trainer that has most like yeah, he has done so much to me.
We had someone ask what's the hair care routine? How do you get the hair looking like that?
It's easy. It's just go in the shower, wash it a little bit, no shampoo, and then there's just I don't know what you say, but with what do you call it when you drag it backwards? I don't know what you call it.
You just pull back, or just like
brush?
Yeah, with a brush. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just brush it backwards and then peel it to the side a little bit, and then it's done. I don't want to wash my hair with shampoo every time I shower. I don't think that's good. So
well, what was it? James Neal was on the like NHL 36 thing like a decade ago, and he said I think once every 2 weeks he'd wash his hair because he didn't want to like get rid of the oils, because that's like supposedly what makes you go bald. And I don't know, maybe that's what's happening to me.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah, I maybe wash it with shampoo 2 times a week, maybe 3.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
So you said you've been here about a month, Mikey Millen and stuff. Is your plan to be here all summer and train, or like what's your kind of plan for the off season and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the plan is to go back to Sweden now after development camp and spend some time home, and then come back late August, early September to training camp.
And do you have a favorite part of the Twin Cities so far, a favorite restaurant or a go-to place since you've been here for a little bit now? What's your go-to hangout since you've been in town?
Well, go-to restaurant would probably be Sweet Greens. I've been there almost every day to lunch, but one restaurant I went to was the Capitol Grill. They had unreal steak. It was so good. So definitely recommend that. And I'll be back there for sure.
And like, obviously, I think you mentioned earlier today in interviews that, obviously you made an impression last year, but you're not given anything going into next year. Like, how do you view going into camp? What you've shown, but like what you need to prove, I guess, to be on the roster, to be part of the mix. Like, seems like you have an opportunity to be part of that group.
Yeah. Yeah. My main goal is to make the team, and I think it was good for me to get those 4 games last season and really see what I need to do to play on that level. And I think I could handle that when I played. So it was good for me to get those games. And I think I just need to continue work on my game, small details. I don't know exactly what, but I think we'll have a meeting now here on development camp before I go home about that, and then I just think I need to get a little bit more maturity to the game, and because I feel like I always play better at the end of the season, and I think that's because I need some time to adjust to the game and stuff. But after I do that, I think, I'm pretty much ready.
What was the biggest adjustment going from the Swedish league to the NHL? I know you played in the AHL a little bit with Iowa, but like, what was the biggest difference you saw in style or just how your game translated?
I would first of all definitely say the size of the rink is a huge difference. It felt so small when I got here. It felt like I didn't have any time at all. But yeah, other than that, it's not so much of a difference. It's obviously a better league, better players around you and against you. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question, but I'd say that's the biggest difference. I don't know.
And like you mentioned, you felt smaller and you're a big guy. And when how it translates to your game, where you're like a guy who plays in the dirty areas in front of the net, like how did that affect your game? If you that the rink being smaller in terms of like the strengths that you have and how it played into it.
Yeah, I think over time it will fit my game pretty good. I think it was hard in the beginning, but when I get more used to it, I think it will be good for me because I can use my speed, and it's close to pretty much everything, and I can use my shot from pretty much everywhere. So yeah, I think and I hope it's gonna turn out pretty good.
I think you said earlier that you had a Zach Bryan concert moment. Is that your favorite artist, I guess, or who's your favorite bands that you listen to?
Yeah, for now it's definitely Zach Bryan. He's really good, and I was in Nashville a couple of weeks ago and watched him live, and the concert was unreal. Probably the best concert I ever been to. So yeah, he's very good.
So if you're on a long road trip, whether it's in Sweden or here, driving somewhere, like what are your go-to like on your playlist? So what's on your Spotify or Apple playlist?
Definitely Zach Bryan. Maybe some Swedish songs. I like Swedish rap music actually,
Okay.
and some other Swedish artist. You don't know who it is, but Victor Leksand. He's really good. I like to listen to him, and Yeah, it depends what mood you're in, also. But those three kinds of music I listen a lot to.
Are you a big golfer at all? Do you play golf?
I started to play golf last year, actually, so I'm not a big golfer right now, and obviously I had that back injury last year, so couldn't play much. But yeah, I tried to.
Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order.
They want to ask, who's your dream golf foursome? Like, who's the three other people, dead or alive, athlete, musician, whatever, that you would love to play a round of golf with? Like, the four of you guys playing. Like, who would it be? Anything?
Maybe, yeah, I'll go Zach Bryan for one of them.
Okay.
Maybe sing a little bit during the rounds. I don't know, maybe Austin Matthews. I love to see him play hockey, and I think he's probably a great guy too. So, and he's been my favorite player for a long time now. So maybe him, and then this is tough. I don't know.
Could be actor, celebrity, it could be your brother, it could be anybody, so.
Yeah, not my brother. He's not playing. Okay, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll just say Charles Leclerc.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have who's in your cart then? Who'll be riding with you? Will be Zach Bryan to sing the whole time?
Yeah, probably Zach Bryan.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for. Sorry, Scott, you're on mute.
I am on mute. I was just gonna applaud you, Liam, that you are the first person. Like, we've had so many people. They're like, "Well, I guess I'll bring my brother or my dad because they'd be mad if I didn't." You just holding firm, being like, "No, my brother's not coming." Awesome.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for joining us. I know it was a long day, development camp, a few more days to go for you. But looking forward to seeing you get back to Minnesota later this summer, early training camp, and seeing how it goes. But thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have you on again as the season goes along.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
What a beauty. Again, very excited for him to come in. I'm thrilled that he actually was as excited about the hair question as he was. I thought that might fall flat, but he actually lit up.
Yeah, some guys, aren't afraid to talk about that kind of stuff too. And I like when you have that kind of swagger about it and look at yourself too seriously. But yeah, I think his personality fits that group. And as he gets more comfortable and is around the team more, you'll see that. But definitely like his profile, the size, the shot, the skating ability. He's definitely not intimidated by the situation. So we'll see what he could do in his first full season. That's a big challenge for a lot of guys.
Yeah, for sure. Let's kick it then. Final segment here, as always, brought to you by our great friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. Keyboard Warriors, hot take segment. And this one is, well, I don't know. It's a little too hot, but we keep seeing these types of comments thrown into YouTube, so it just needs to be addressed. And it's perfect timing because of the question we got last week in the mailbag, Joe. Had someone just flat out say, Guerin should step down, Fleury should be the new GM, which seems so perfect too, where like I'm never talking politics on here in any serious way. I probably won't in person either if anyone talks to me, so don't even try. But I mean, it's very much got the feel of Biden stepping down and passing it over to Kamala Harris. They want Guerin to step down and just let Fleury run. The general sentiment for you, just obviously, I don't think either of us think that Fleury is going to be the next GM of the Wild, but Garen, where are you at? Like, we've seen a lot of good. We've seen some questionable things that have been talked about pretty regularly by you and Russo. Where are we at on him? And like, are we just completely happy with what's happened so far? Does he have quite a bit of leash, or does he only have, a year or two here to prove out once the cap opens up, quote unquote, even though he spent a lot of it already?
It was interesting. We did that Wild fan survey this past year, and we wondered if fan confidence in him would have dropped quite a bit in the last year, because you see a lot of comments and people critical of the extensions and the coaching change and contracts and all this stuff. Obviously, the investigation last fall as well. And so, but fans, at least the ones that are commenting or our subscribers, the ones that follow it, still have that kind of belief in him. And, he's been, I think, 6 years now, organization. He was elevated recently to the president, so he was promoted and given an extension. So he has some security in that respect. But I think the next 12 to 16 months will go a long way, I think, in how he is viewed and be kind of where he goes from here, because, if he bought himself some time with the buyouts, having the 14.7 million in dead cap is real, and is a disadvantage. But I think it'll be so important for people to find out, can you convince Kirill to stay? And that'll be a big one next summer, right? That'll be one of his kind of legacy points. Yeah, they brought him here and signed him here. He should get great credit for that. But can you build enough of a team to where you can convince the best player you probably ever had in this organization to stay? So I think the next 12 months will be kind of critical in that. And when he has that chance to spend whatever money that they do have left over, how does he finish that off, right? So I think that's going to be, telling for a lot of people. I don't think he's going to get replaced by Fleury tomorrow. I don't think he's going to step down. I think he has a leash there. But considering he went through what he went through last year, from the coaching change to the investigation, and still was able to kind of get through that, I think showed kind of where, how he's thought of, and like Craig Leopold's the person that matters in this whole situation. Yeah. But I do think that the pressure is going to be mounting here more. I think he realizes that, and expectations are starting to shift to him versus, we have time. We wait till we get to this 25 and we can have this team and we can build around it. I think that's where the pressure is really on him now versus before. And the prospects that they drafted are part of that. Does the Ohgrens and the Yurovs and the Heights and them deliver? Do those guys live up to the hype? And can he convince Kirill Kaprizov to stay? And what does he do with the rest of that money? And who can he get? So I think I don't think he's necessarily in a hot seat quite yet. We'll see what happens with this season. But I think the next 12 months can be a good flashing out point of where we go from there.
Sure. And I think it's widely assumed by fans that this year gets a little bit of a pass. Like, playoffs are not a key indicator for them as long as it doesn't impact Kirill staying. Yeah. But let's say Kirill stays. Is it too hot of a take for me to say that missing the playoffs the following season is not an option?
This season coming up?
Not this upcoming season, the following. So 25-26 season. Is it too hot of a take for me to say that it is not acceptable to miss the playoffs? Like, that could be a huge blow for him as far as Leopold is concerned.
Well, absolutely. And we don't know what's going to happen this year. There's no guarantee to make the playoffs this year with the way that the Central Division and the Western Conference have loaded up. So I think, if you put that together, if you missed last year and this year's a wild card in the next year, that's 3 years in a row, and a franchise that's looking to win past the first round. I think that would certainly be a major indictment on the whole entire group. So that's why I think this next year is so important, building with John Hynes, and they can make the playoffs and make a little bit of a splash there, win a round or something like that, to prove to them and prove to Kirill, like, this is a team now that they have more cash and they can build around him. And these guys are coming. These young players that we talked about, the Yurovs and the Ohgrens and the Heights and the Z Biome they drafted in favor. Like if he sees that as something he can win with, then he will. But that's why I think this next year will be so fascinating. After boring off season the last couple of years, next summer will not be boring at all.
No, it won't. All right, fair. Well, that's as much spice as we can handle for 1 week. We will be, over the course of the remainder of the summer, making some rounds, going out and checking out the greatest summer hockey league that exists, the Beauty League. If you comment on this video on YouTube, let us know who your favorite players are there, who you want us to target, guys that you want us to do our best to bring in for interviews for this show. We will absolutely do our best to abide by that. So let us know who you want. Let us know why. Let us know if you got cool questions for them, and we'll do our best for you. Joe, anything coming up? I know you are still like tapering off at the end of the first round of paternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
Any articles that you have already like got the itch to start writing, or things that Russo's working on that are going to be coming up here soon?
Yeah, I think going into the August, I'll be doing some national stuff, and I'll be also doing some Wild reporting and some season preview stuff, and also stories on the likes of the Ohgrens and the Heights and that. So I have some features that I'll be working on when I'm back from leave here in a week. And then obviously going to the summer league and talking to some players there, some players with Minnesota ties like the Ryan McDonoughs and the Jake Gensels of the world. So I think overall I'm looking forward to getting back into it. It's been weird. This has been the longest I've ever gone without, writing a story or doing that. So I'm excited to get back into it in August and then moving forward. But I think as far as national stuff, I know now, I think Russo and I were working on a story, franchise rankings in the salary cap era. Each team ranked for how playoff appearances, cap situation, since the cap era. The Wild aren't going to be very high on that because of the lack of playoff success. But interesting to see how many teams that are on the higher end now that are bad. Like the Anaheim Ducks are up there, right? And they are living off the past of some early salary cap era success.
They were good. They were a very well-oiled machine for a bit there.
And like Red Wings, and like they're in the top 10, but they're missed the playoffs the last 6 years. So interesting to see how that's going to maybe flip as we go forward here. But that's another little kind of off-season wrinkle that we're been working on.
Awesome. Well, everyone, make sure if you haven't already for some reason, go over, subscribe to The Athletic. I'm sure if you check out any of the posts that Joe and Russo throw out there for new articles, if there's a deal, they'll let you know. So if you want to lurk in the background and wait until the next special is, I guess I respect that. But going into the season, if you don't have a subscription, you're going to be bummed and you're going to be missing out on some great coverage. Everyone, thank you again for tuning in here. If you are new to Fellowship of the Rink and enjoyed the episode, hitting the subscribe button, leaving a 5-star review, all that helps us way more than you know. And if video is more your thing, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Soda Pod, where we'll have full podcast recordings, clips, full interviews, highlight reels, you name it. Go check it out. And that's really all we got here. Joe, any parting words?
No, just enjoy the rest of your Minnesota summer. I know the weather's been a little off and on here, but looking forward to continue to bring this podcast and do some writing in August. But it's a weird time of year, right? Like it's the dog days of no NHL news going on. But I know people will be excited for the season to get started. Like it'll be September before we know it, right? Which is a crazy thing.
It is crazy. Well, as always, we appreciate you tuning in for this week's Fellowship of the Rink. You stay classy, stay to hockey.